So Bungie gave us our first look at the next chapter, well, the next saga of Destiny really, and yeah, it is definitely more Destiny. I think at this point it's worth just moving on the conversation from Destiny 3 and just accepting that, look, Destiny 2 is what's going to be here for the next couple of years, and focus on, okay, what are Bungie going to deliver to help expand on the 10 years that we've had with Destiny so far? For some general top level thoughts before we drill down into exactly what was shown in the showcase, I thought this was a pretty good showcase. There's definitely some things that I'm like, alright, I needed a bit more here, and the Bungie could have presented a little bit better and a little bit clearer with more clarity on. But on the whole, there's things here that I do quite like, and especially when we're looking at this as a new saga, three things have to happen. We have to re-engage the core fan base that has still been here after the final shape, that's still been engaged with the episodes. We've got to bring back those who have lapsed off, whether that's pre-final shape, at final shape, and we have to entice new people into the world of Destiny. And I think a lot of what was here could do that. Obviously, we've shifted towards this dual expansion format for Destiny now. So the first expansion is going to be the Edge of Fate, which is going to take place on Kepler. And what the Bungie is saying about it in that it's a new destination, but the destination itself is inspired by the puzzle solving and the pathfinding of dungeons and destinations in the past, is quite interesting. I definitely feel like the focus on the 9 is massively important here because we've had some good stories over the past year. The final shape was extraordinary. Heresy had some really good moments, even it kind of butchered its ending a little bit. And then we've had the lows of what was Echoes and Revenant. But a brand new focus on the 9, and especially with a lot of that's going to predate what has happened in the Light and Dark saga, is going to bring that mystery back to Destiny that got us all back in the first place, that made us think about, okay, rather than just getting answers, which the final shape had to do, it's more about asking questions again that is going to get answered later on down the line. And I think when you're starting off a brand new saga, that is massively important. Now, as for the Edge of Fate, I love the visual aesthetic of Kepler. I think it looks stunning. And we know that Bungie, if you say the word Bungie, you know the art direction and the art design is going to be 10 out of 10 no matter what. I think what's very interesting is they've spoke a lot about this non-linear approach to what the campaign is going to be, and it's going to be a Metroidvania to a degree. So we're going to get abilities from one place and go to another, and I think that can be interesting. I always worry that when we get a non-linear campaign, and I always look at the Ubisoft games in particular, is you do things out of order, and what that means is you start really strongly, and then you're bouncing around different places, and then you end really strongly. But that middle third, if you like, doesn't amount to much because it's not connected. You're not going from here to there in the way a traditional Destiny campaign would. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of pull that off. Obviously, what they mentioned that is coming with the with Edge of Fate is this new world tiers. Now, I played a good amount of the Division. I like the concept of world tiers. It is going to be very different for Destiny players to experience, rather than just base difficulty and legendary difficulty for its campaigns. The idea of running things back over and over, and as a result getting more powerful and getting new abilities, and you're going to see the world in a different view, I think could be quite interesting, especially when you think about Destiny's exploration. Now, I will say that the abilities that they showed off, like the Metroid very looking thing where you're bouncing around as an electric ball, is interesting from a navigation point of view. From a combat point of view, I'm not too sure. And this is where I start to feel where Destiny's gone, and I'm not too sure if I really enjoy the direction of it. For me, Destiny's always been about the journey and the experience you have with your firearms, right? It's been about this one distinct firearm that you've absolutely grown to love. And as time has gone on, for as good as the build crafting has been, I feel like there is much less of a reliance on the actual guns you are shooting and more the abilities that you are bouncing about. And again, that came across here in the Edge of Fate reveal, where we're seeing the lightning ball and we're dotting between all the enemies. I like it from an exploration side, and I think that could offer some really cool stuff that we haven't seen in Destiny yet. From a combat side, I'm not too sure because I like shooting my gun. I like shooting my gun more than doing all the abilities. And the ability sandbox, I feel at this point, has become more important outside of probably the higher tier content than your gun at this point. So it's a case of wait and see. I will say I have cautious optimism about this first part because obviously the first expansion, any saga, is all about the setup. And it can't be understated just how important that setup is that if you do not create this enticing mystery at the heart of it in the very first expansion, it's going to be a tough road from there. Now, what they have for their second expansion will no doubt bring people back or in, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I definitely feel that if we're going from this path and we're starting a saga, the mystery at the core of it has to be interesting, otherwise people will bounce. Now, speaking of that second expansion, which is obviously known as Renegades, I mean, we might have got a little bit excited, as you know, maybe Destiny is my favourite gaming sci-fi franchise, and maybe Star Wars is my favourite sci-fi franchise, probably, potentially my favourite franchise generally. I got a bit excited. It can't be. It can't, then there's no way. Oh my god. Sound. You are joking me. Oh my god. Oh my, yes. Get in, mate. You fucking favourite. Look how small this is. Get in. Where's my headset gone? Wow. I can't believe it. Oh my god. Now, I absolutely caught it when I did my reaction video yesterday, in that some people are just not into this whatsoever. They do not like the idea of Star Wars crossing over into core Destiny content. And I get it. But I think Bungie's phrasing on this is very, very important in what they have to say. In that this is inspired by Star Wars. That it's Renegades and it's merging Destiny storytelling and gameplay with themes and elements of the sci-fi franchise. Robbie Stevens followed up on this, who is the assistant game director for Destiny 2, who was on the stream yesterday, and he said, quote, "Rest assured, Guardians, everything in Renegades is in canon for the Destiny universe, but we're leaning into the aesthetic, tone, and vibe of Star Wars to tell a Destiny story with Destiny characters." So, personally, I don't expect to see Palpatine somehow returning again and being in the tower, or Darth Vader, we have to chase him down or anything like that. I personally could not be more excited for this. Could we see a Star Wars character in there at some point? Maybe, alright? It could be, and it could work as long as it's done right. But for me, this is about having Star Wars blasters, Star Wars lightsabers, Star Wars aesthetics in the Destiny universe, rather than the other way around. And I know some people are just never going to buy into that idea, and that is totally okay. But I could not be more excited. Like I say, this is my favourite sci-fi gaming franchise now. It's probably overtaken Halo at this point. And to merge it with Star Wars, and you can see behind me the sabers and the Destiny Tower, I just could not be more excited by this. I've always thought, we're not getting a Mandalorian game. The idea of me being a hunter in Destiny, getting the DL-44, or getting a lightsaber as a warlock, or whatever it might be, is going to lean into that Star Wars aesthetic so much that I can't help but feel excited by it. Now, they really didn't give much details on this. We have a full reveal in September, which of course I'll be covering. But at the end of the day, we've been playing Destiny now for 10 years. And the idea of collaborative expansions is going to feel weird at first. And I get the Fortnite comparisons, but we want innovation in the game. And I understand what people are saying, that maybe they want something a little bit different. But I appreciate the idea and the attempt from Bungie to innovate on what Destiny has been by being inspired by other things and leaning into that aesthetic. If every year now with this dual format expansion, we got a Destiny inspired, a Destiny focused expansion, and then one kind of inspired by expansion, that could be a cool way of mixing and matching with the formula. And obviously what the narrative director, I believe it was, who was talking, basically setting up Renegades before they debuted the trailer, she was talking very much about, like, we're talking about innovation in social activities, in actual core activities, and how that might play into the Destiny universe and allow us to do different things. And if we're going to get years more of Destiny, it has to be that. The problem is that you're never going to please everyone in the Destiny community at this point. But if you bring in, and we'll talk about in a second, with the Armor 3.0 and weapon tiers and world tiers, some people will be like, oh, but now my gear doesn't work. And then people talking about they want a Destiny 3, but then they're not willing to get rid of their old loot. The thing is, for a game to evolve, it has to move on from its current content. The thing is, we can't have the best of both worlds. We can't have all the gear that is currently in our vaults and our inventory and have the game meaningfully expand. This is a looter shooter where the loot has become less and less significant as time has gone on because we've reached that cap. We have power crept our way all the way up here. So now we're talking about weapon tiers up to 5. We're talking about armor 3.0. The game has to expand past what is just traditionally run mission, go to holo projector. And we've had the seasonal jokes, but even past the legendary campaigns, I would rather Bungie try and experiment, because that is the only way Destiny can meaningfully evolve, and that is the only... It's not like other looter shooters. Borderlands is sequelized. Every couple of years, they just drop an entirely new entry. Could you imagine the Borderlands 3 into Borderlands 4 now? The Borderlands 3 community are like, I want to keep all my guns though. No. That's why Call of Duty has a new game every year. It's a fresh start, a fresh chase. Destiny 2, at its core, is a looter shooter. And if a looter shooter is to evolve, they have to leave things behind to incentivize a new chase. So let's talk about Armor 3.0 and the new gear systems, because it is important from a build crafting sense and from incentivize the chase again. So Armor 3.0 is new systems that I'm reading directly from will empower your playstyle. There are new stats like ones that can increase weapon damage, as well as stronger effects of the ones you already know. You only have to crank them up to 200 points to get them. If you wear 2 or more pieces of a given set, you can push your favorite builds even further with special set bonuses, end quote. Now, armor's been stagnant for a long time, and I play a lot of looter shooters. An armor set is very important in incentivizing build crafting. At this point, it's just been the same thing for years now, and the fact that they're reworking a lot of the armor stats, I will say this is one of my biggest disappointments with the showcase yesterday, is just to drop Armor 3.0 and to drop weapon tiers and give them probably both about 20 seconds each. It needed a little bit more. Just even so far to go, here's 2 examples. Here's weapon tier 1, here's weapon tier 5. Here's one armor set, here's another armor set, and here's the playstyle that we're using with. We will get those, I am sure, in TWIDs later down the line, but it was one of my biggest disappointments, because this is the fundamental changes we've been asking for Destiny. This is something that is going to incentivize people to come back and have a new chase. It's going to incentivize people to build further on current builds that they currently got. So I'm disappointed that this wasn't given a little bit more limelight, even if it will be answered. This is the big stage, and you have to remember that for as much as the TWIDs will go into the nitty-gritty of it all, you want to get this point across more, that this is coming, that this is a fresh chase, a fresh loot chase. Not everybody will read the TWID. What I am a huge fan of is Destiny Portal. And again, we knew this was coming, but they showed it again yesterday. And this is this one main hub that is going to show everyone where to go. It's going to have solo ops, PvP, pinnacle activities, and basically just guide people to what they want to do and where they want to go with it. And I cannot stress how important this is. When you are building a brand new saga and you are like, hey, come play Destiny, we're starting fresh. To have that in the game is massive, because I can now say to my friends, okay, you can actually just go and play Destiny without me needing to baby step you every single part of the way. And when we've got Right of the Nine, which is going to guide people through the dungeons, this is massive. For as much as we want to evolve on the current player base and give them new things to chase, if Destiny doesn't get new people through the door, the franchise is done. It will not retain the player count that it needs to. And this is the example that people talk about, in that you can absolutely expand on the game for the people that have played it for tens of thousands of hours versus the people that have never touched Destiny. And you can cater to both of them at the same time by giving us Armor 3.0, weapon tier loot, but then giving us the portal as well. These are meaningful changes that are going to help keep that core player base and bring people in. What I think was very apparent yesterday was the focus on replayability. They even said that we're not designing activities anymore to be in the game for 3 months and become non-existent after, and no focus in them, or no point of them. So there's that aspect of things, but then there's also what they're doing with boons, with modifiers, and that being able to manipulate your raids, your dungeons, and set modifiers within them that will have some kind of impact on the rewards you get for it. And I think with Destiny now having 1 raid and 1 dungeon a year, and potentially, we don't know how things are going to completely shake out, but probably getting less content overall, the focus on replayability, it has to be there. It needs to be there to be important. Otherwise, people are going to drop off, and it's a lot more difficult than ever with the amount of live service games and looter shooters and co-op games dropping all the time. If you dip out of a game, it gets very, very hard to bring people back. So the focus on replayability is good. But I definitely feel that Destiny's in a place now where you can kind of just go hard for a couple of weeks, drop off, and it's become quite a nice casual game just to keep dipping your toe back into. Overall with this showcase, the feeling I get is that Bungie are trying to set up Destiny 2.5. They can't go ahead and make a full sequel, so what they're doing here is they're revamping the core foundation of the game. Changes to armor that are quite significant, a new weapon tier system that is going to incentivize a new chase, a new story that is going to try and entice new players in and say, hey, this is a jumping on point. But also, the 9 have been this mysterious kind of in the background for a long time now, that for those that have played a lot of Destiny, they're part of a mystery that you're like, okay, I want to know more about them. So, I would not say I was blown away by the entirety of this showcase. Did I get extremely excited for the Star Wars stuff? Of course I did. I love that shit. Like, that is probably one of the most anticipated games for the rest of the year now in seeing that Star Wars expansion. Like, I cannot think of a more coded thing for me personally. But if I kind of take those Star Wars goggles off for a second, did this showcase set me alight? No. But it did show me promising foundational changes that could work out to Destiny's benefit. I'm still cautious about the Edge of Fate with the non-linearity, with the changes. Are the characters going to do enough? Is that mystery, that core mystery that the game is obviously going to try and set up, is it enticing? And as I said before, it definitely feels like they glossed over Armor 3.0 and the weapon changes, because that is something in a looter shooter you should be sticking front and center. The Star Wars stuff is still just ridiculous in the best ways possible, and I understand people's skepticism around that and the fact that some people will not buy into that whatsoever, and I think that's a fair opinion. But I'm also like, give it a chance. We all want Destiny to evolve. We all want it to become something different. If Destiny Renegade comes out and it is literally just the same stuff we've been doing, but with a Star Wars coat, it's a little bit, you know, that at that point maybe you'll take the wind out of the sails. But it's a very, very important year, and between Destiny Renegades and Edge of Fate, with the non-linear stuff, with the Star Wars stuff, I like the ambition of actually trying to innovate with what they're doing, trying something different that isn't just the tried and true stuff. So we have to wait and see whether it pays off, but I'll leave that showcase fairly optimistic with some caution. But I want to know, what are you thinking about Edge of Fate, Renegades, that whole reveal yesterday? Have you got any feedback? I'd love to hear from you, positive, negative. Are you just mind-blowingly excited like I am for the Star Wars stuff? Let me hear from you in the comments down below. If you enjoyed hearing my thoughts, dropping a like always helps the channel in the algorithm battle. And yeah, Destiny and Star Wars, of course, we will always be covering it on this channel, so make sure you are subscribed. Regardless, I hope you have a terrific day. Play games, get gains, and I will catch you in the next one.